Imagine being taxed for the number of windows in your house or for wearing a beard. History is filled with bizarre and fascinating taxes that seem unbelievable today. From breast taxes to soap taxes, these levies shaped societies in unexpected ways. Welcome to History Lab Archives. Today we're delving into the weirdest taxes ever imposed throughout history. Get ready to discover how governments have creatively emptied the pockets of their citizens with some truly outlandish taxes. In this video, we'll explore the infamous breast tax, the bizarre beard tax, the uncomfortable urine tax, the curious soap tax, and many more. We'll uncover the stories behind these taxes and the rebellious acts they inspired. Trust me, you won't want to miss these surprising tales. The breast tax, a tale of rebellion. First, let's talk about one of the most shocking and oppressive taxes in history, the breast tax. In the Kingdom of Travancore in southern India during the 19th century, lower caste women were required to pay a tax called the mulakkaram, or breast tax, if they wished to cover their breasts in public. This tax was an outrageous symbol of caste-based oppression and gender discrimination. One of the most famous stories related to this tax involves a woman named Nangeli. Refusing to pay the tax, she cut off her breasts and presented them to the tax collector on a banana leaf. Tragically, Nangeli died from her injuries, but her act of defiance sparked significant outrage and eventually led to the abolition of the breast tax. This tax not only highlighted the severe oppression faced by women, but also the societal divide based on caste and class. Nangeli's sacrifice became a powerful symbol of resistance against tyranny. Imagine the sheer audacity and courage it took for Nangeli to protest in such a dramatic way. Her story is both heartbreaking and inspiring. Have you ever heard of a tax that made you feel outraged? Share your thoughts in the comments. According to historian Manu S. Pillai, the breast tax was a stark reminder of the social hierarchies that governed life in Travancore. While the breast tax was a symbol of severe oppression, the next tax we'll discuss has a touch of the whimsical. The beard tax, paying for facial hair. Next, we dive into the peculiar world of the beard tax, introduced by none other than Tsar Peter the Great of Russia. In the late 17th century, Tsar Peter the Great wanted to modernize Russia and align it more with Western European standards. One of his methods was to impose a tax on beards. Men who wished to keep their beards had to pay a tax and carry a token to prove they had paid. The amount of the tax varied depending on the status of the individual. Nobles and merchants paid significantly more than peasants. The beard tax was part of Peter's broader reforms to westernize Russia, which included changes in clothing, education, and even social behavior. The beard tax wasn't just about money. It was a symbol of Peter's campaign to reform Russian society and its traditions. This tax forced many to adopt a westernized appearance, fundamentally changing Russian culture. Imagine getting fined for not shaving. It's hard to believe facial hair could become a matter of state policy. Tsar Peter's tax led to many Russians reluctantly parting with their beloved beards. Would you pay a tax to keep your beard or moustache? Let us know in the comments. Historian Lindsay Hughes notes that the beard tax was one of many ways Peter the Great sought to transform Russian society. From beards to bodily functions, our next tax takes us to ancient Rome with the urine tax, pecunia non olet. Let's explore the peculiar and somewhat unsavory urine tax of ancient Rome. In ancient Rome, human urine was a valuable commodity. It was used in tanning leather, laundering clothes, and even as a source of ammonia for cleaning purposes. The Roman Emperor Vespasian saw an opportunity to generate revenue and imposed a tax on public urinals. Collectors of urine, who used it for various industrial purposes, had to pay this tax. The phrase pecunia non olet, or money does not stink, originated from this period, highlighting that profit can be made from even the most unsavory sources. This tax reflects the ingenuity of Roman financial strategies. By taxing something as mundane as urine, Vespasian demonstrated that revenue could be generated from almost anything, as long as there was demand. Imagine paying for something as mundane as urine. It just goes to show that when it comes to taxes, anything can become a source of revenue. What's the strangest thing you can imagine being taxed? Share your ideas below. Roman historian Suetonius documented Vespasian's tax and the famous phrase pecunia non olet in his work, The 12 Caesars. Moving from ancient Rome to more recent history, let's dive into the story of the infamous soap tax in England. The soap tax, cleanliness at a cost. Next up is the soap tax, which made staying clean a costly affair in England. Introduced in the 17th century, the soap tax in England was a significant revenue source for the government. It imposed a high tax on soap, making it a luxury item that only the wealthy could afford. This tax persisted for nearly 200 years, creating a black market for soap. Soap bootleggers emerged, producing and selling soap illegally to avoid the hefty taxes. Those caught were heavily fined or even imprisoned. The soap tax disproportionately affected the lower classes, who struggled to afford basic hygiene. This tax had a profound impact on public health, as many could not afford to maintain proper hygiene. The government's attempt to profit from a basic necessity led to increased disease and uncleanliness among the population. Imagine risking imprisonment just to stay clean. Soap became such a precious commodity that people would go to great lengths to produce and procure it illegally. Have you ever heard of a black market for something as essential as soap? What would you do if soap became unaffordable? Let us know in the comments. According to historian Arthur Bryant, the soap tax was one of the most unpopular taxes in English history, leading to widespread smuggling and illegal production. While the soap tax made hygiene a luxury, our next tax is a bit more whimsical. The window tax, paying for light and air. Now, let's explore the window tax, a levy on the very windows of houses in 18th century England. The window tax was introduced in England in 1696 and was based on the number of windows in a building. The idea was that wealthier individuals who could afford larger houses with more windows should pay more in taxes. However, the tax led to unintended consequences. To avoid paying higher taxes, many people bricked up their windows, resulting in dark and poorly ventilated homes. This practice became so widespread that it is believed to have contributed to health problems due to the lack of fresh air and light. The window tax wasn't just a quirky levy, it had real social and architectural impacts. It changed the way buildings were designed, often leading to unhealthy living conditions and public discontent. Imagine living in a house with bricked-up windows just to save money on taxes. It's like living in a cave to avoid paying for sunlight. Would you brick up your windows to avoid a tax? Share your thoughts below. Historian David R. Green explains that the window tax significantly impacted urban architecture and public health during its enforcement. Next, let's explore a tax that uniquely targeted the Chinese immigrants in North America. The Chinese head tax, discrimination in taxation. Let's delve into the Chinese head tax, a discriminatory levy imposed in North America. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Chinese immigrants faced severe discrimination in countries like Canada and the United States. The Chinese head tax was a levy specifically targeting Chinese immigrants, forcing them to pay a substantial fee to enter the country. In Canada, this tax was introduced in 1885 and increased several times until it was finally abolished in 1923. The purpose of the tax was to deter Chinese immigration and segregate Chinese communities. It was a blatant example of institutional racism and had lasting impacts on Chinese communities, including financial hardship and social isolation. The Chinese head tax wasn't just a financial burden, it was a symbol of the systemic racism that Chinese immigrants faced. The tax contributed to the marginalization and exploitation of Chinese workers, who were vital to the development of the railroads and other infrastructure projects. There's nothing humorous about this tax, as it represents a dark chapter in the history of immigration policies. However, the resilience and perseverance of the Chinese communities in the face of such discrimination is truly inspiring. Have you heard of any discriminatory taxes in history? How do you think such policies affect communities? Share your thoughts. Historian Peter Ward highlights the impact of the Chinese head tax on Chinese communities in Canada in his book, White Canada Forever. Finally, let's explore an environmental tax that targets something unexpected. The cow flatulence tax, an environmental levy. To wrap up, let's discuss the cow flatulence tax, an environmental levy with a humorous twist. With growing concerns over climate change, some countries have considered taxing livestock farmers for the methane emissions produced by their cattle. Methane, a potent greenhouse gas, is released during digestion and contributes significantly to global warming. Countries like New Zealand and Denmark have proposed such taxes to reduce emissions and encourage more sustainable farming practices. While the idea of taxing cow flatulence might sound funny, it addresses a serious environmental issue and highlights the creative ways governments are trying to combat climate change. This tax isn't just a whimsical idea, it's part of a broader strategy to mitigate climate change by targeting all major sources of greenhouse gases. By imposing such a tax, governments aim to incentivize farmers to adopt eco-friendly practices. Imagine being taxed for your cow's burps and farts. It's a reminder that even the most unexpected things can have significant environmental impacts. What do you think about environmental taxes like this? Can you think of other creative ways to combat climate change? Share your ideas below. Environmental economist Frank Giozzo discusses the potential and challenges of implementing livestock emission taxes in climate policy. These taxes, from the practical to the bizarre, shape societies in ways that are both fascinating and unexpected. Let's recap what we've learned today. Today, we journeyed through some of the weirdest taxes in history. We explored the oppressive breast tax, the whimsical beard tax, the unsavory urine tax, the costly soap tax, the peculiar window tax, the discriminatory Chinese head tax, and the environmentally focused cow flatulence tax. These stories highlight the creativity and sometimes absurdity of historical taxation. While some of these taxes may seem laughable now, they had significant impacts on society, architecture, public health, and even environmental policies. If you enjoyed this dive into the weirdest taxes in history, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more fascinating historical tales from History Lab archives. And don't forget to leave a comment with your thoughts on these unusual taxes. Thanks for watching.